Welcome everybody, thank you for coming. I would like to politely ask everybody to silence their phones for the evening and to hold all applause until the end so that everybody can get through their statements quickly. We don't have speakers that amplify, so everybody's going to need to speak up, and at times it might be difficult for people to hear. My name's Carissa, I'm with Aspire. I'm here on behalf of Heather, who couldn't make it tonight. Just wanted to introduce who we are. Aspire is Abington for Social Progress. Holy heck, I just forgot the name of my own group. Anyway, thank you. Tony's the one who came up with it. Anyway, we're a local DEI group. We're here hoping to foster education and events for human and civil rights in Abington. And with that, I think we're ready to turn it over. All right.
Thank you, Carissa. My name is Margaret COPPE. I am from the League of Women Voters in Lexington, and I was invited to come down to moderate, so I'm pleased to be here. Tonight's program, we've already got the cell phone. The timekeepers are sitting in the front row over here. They have cards that say 30 seconds and stop, so that the candidates will know how much time they have and the rest of you will know how much time they have. We will have statements from uncontested candidates. We have 3 of them here tonight. Then they will each have a 2-minute opportunity. When we get to the contested candidates, they will each have a 2-minute opening statement. They will then answer 4 questions submitted by the public. The candidates have been informed in advance of the general topics of these questions. The candidates will answer in alphabetical order and then rotate the first answer after the opening statements, and then the closing statements will be in reverse alphabetical. 2 minutes to respond to each candidate. The timekeepers will hold up their cards over here when there's 30 seconds left, and then the stop. And if you want to ask a question, candidates, I see some of them right here, if you want to ask a question of another candidate or rebuttal, we can allow that. We'll make sure, but then the rebuttal will only be 1 minute, and everyone has the same chance, and everyone gets to answer the same questions. You then each will have a closing statement of 1 minute. So with that, I think we can go ahead and start with the uncontested candidates. Would they come forward, please? Suzanne Justberg, SHAWN REILLY, and Amanda ZOMPETTI. I know, I'm going to explain that. Oh, but you're the only one here. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. I mean, Suzanne, I looked here. So, could you be seated, please? Sure. Suzanne was reminding me that she is contested. There are 3 candidates for 2 seats on the select board, but the other 2 contestants were unable to make tonight's program. So while she is sitting with the uncontested candidates, she is contested. Is that clear? Great. Okay. We'll start with Suzanne. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Suzanne Justberg. I have lived in Abington a little over 30 years. I raised 2 children here that went into the Abington school system, had a great education, and ended up going to BC High that we chose. If no one knows me, I was the director here in the Abington Senior Center for 13 years. I just retired in November, and I was the director of youth lacrosse in Abington for about 10 years, and I ran that program, and I also supported the Abington High School lacrosse team. I am running for one seat out of the 2 seats, and there are 3 selectmen, or 3 people running for selectmen. A little bit about my background. I run a company. I've been running a company for a couple of years now. And when I retired, I thought I really wanted to give back to Abington. As far as experience, my background is, you can see at the Abington Senior Center, we have made this into a vibrant place where it wasn't when I first started. I'm hardworking, I like to advocate, I have done budgets for the last 14, 15 years, And I want to look at the budget a little bit more. I love the town of Abington. I love its character, its history, and that's what I want to keep, as well as grow the town. We are growing leaps and bounds, and I wish that we still kind of keep that history. We still kind of keep our little gems as Ames Knoll, Island Grove, Griffin's Dairy. And I want to say it's a great little town, but we have to be very careful about the balance between growth and keeping our history and our uniqueness. And I wish that I ask for your vote, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Shawn Reilly, who is running for town moderator, and he is unopposed. Mr. Reilly.
I am. Thank you, and thank you to Aspire. My name is Shawn Reilly. I'm pretty much a lifelong resident of Abington. I am running for unopposed for town moderator. It's a 3-year term. I've already served 15 years as our town moderator. Like all the candidates here, we're all volunteers, and we're happy to try to give back to the town of Abington. I have previously served as a deputy moderator before being elected as moderator, and previous to that, I served the town as a volunteer on the school building committee, the police station building committee, the town offices building committee, the bylaw review committee. I was a youth sports coach, which I enjoyed. Some of you may know me as the voice of Green Wave Sports on Abington Cable. I think it's important that we all try to give back and be part of the solution and not part of the problem. With town meeting, it's been my goal to try to make it as efficient as possible, as effective and as informative as possible. And I greatly appreciate the people who do bother to come and attend those meetings, because it's the purest form of democracy is the New England town meeting, where residents can stand up and express their opinions. And one of the things that we do very well here in Abington is that we respect the difference of opinions, because I always encourage people to listen to different opinions, because it may either change your mind and you might want to soften your opinion, or it may completely change your mind and you'll change your opinion, or it might reaffirm your position. But it's important that we listen to each other in a very respectful way, and I think we do a great job of that here in Abington. I want to continue that. Elections are Saturday the 29th at Beaverbrook Elementary School right on Ralph Hamlin Lane, 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 p.m. I would appreciate your vote, even though I'm unopposed. It's important that people get out and vote and express your opinion through the ballot box. So thank you very much. Again, my name is Shawn Reilly. I'm running for moderator. Thanks.
Thank you. Amanda Zompetti,
Yes, good job.
who is unopposed for the Board of Health.
Yes, my name is Amanda Zompetti. I am running unopposed for a 3-seat term on the Board of Health. Unlike the rest, I myself am not a townie. I have been in town for about 8 years, but I joke that I'm raising a townie. My son is 7 and goes to Beaverbrook Elementary School, and he loves being a Green Wave man, he says. He loves his Green Wave sweater. I have, in my short little time in Abington, I just finished up my 2nd year on the Community Preservation Commission, this past year serving as the chair. I am the treasurer for the Beaverbrook Elementary PTO, serving for the last year there. I also just finished up, I stepped down as president of a nonprofit called Bay State Baby Wearers, which is a completely 100% volunteer-run organization in Massachusetts that supported baby wearing for communities throughout Massachusetts. I was president for about 5 years and just stepped down, which now opens up my time to hopefully serve Abington even more on the Board of Health. I am excited to dig into more regulations, particularly our trash and recycling contract. There's opportunities there to either do we do something on our own, do we keep it as is, do we work with other municipalities in a collaborative effort. We're not the only ones dealing with this problem of rising costs, lesser services, and I'm curious to see what I can do with the rest of the board. And I'm just really excited to take the next step to serving this wonderful community that has completely welcomed us, and I want to keep being a part of it. So thank you all so much. And again, if you're here, you're probably voting next Saturday, but please remind your friends, please remind your neighbors. If you're walking your dog, your neighbor's walking your dog, be like, what are you doing next Saturday? You'd be surprised how many people don't know what's happening, and I'd love to see more people attend. If you did vote at all last year, you would have seen me working Precinct 4 as a poll worker, which has also been a fun experience, but we don't see enough people at the local town elections, and I'd love to see more next weekend. So please remind everybody, be a little bit of a pain in the butt if you need to be, but we need to get more people out. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Round of applause for the candidates. Would the two candidates for planning board please come up to the table? Two candidates for planning board are Bruce Hughes and Michelle Kearney. There is one seat open, and is it a 3-year term?
5.
Oh, a 5-year term. Oh, boy, okay. We will begin the opening statements, 2 minutes each, with Mr. Hughes.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Aspire for inviting us here tonight, the League of Women Voters. My name is Bruce Hughes. I'm a lifelong resident of Abington, graduate of Abington Schools. I've been on the planning board for 25 years, and I currently serve as chair of the planning board. My education, I went to Massasoit, UMass Boston, Bridgewater State, got my master's in public administration. Professionally, I've been employed. Planning has been my profession and my passion for most of my life. I was told when I was in high school, people knew that I was going to be a planner. I don't know how they did that, but anyway, but 36 years I was professionally employed as a planner, for 5 years for consulting firms, 31 years for the Old Colony Planning Council, a regional planning agency in Brockton, which includes Abington, and then for about a year at the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. We have a lot going on in Abington as far as activities go. Of course, the redevelopment of Union Point, we're revising zoning bylaws, and of course we have the MBTA Communities Act that we have to act on. So anyway, I'm glad to be here, and I would appreciate your vote on April 29th.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Michelle Kearney.
Thank you. Thank you for Aspire for hosting tonight, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Michelle Kearney. I am 33 years old and a lifelong resident of Abington. I graduated from Abington High in 2008 and then went to Quincy College before transferring to Suffolk University, where I majored in their undergraduate legal programs. I've since worked as a paralegal, which has taught me to always be thorough, adaptable, willing to learn, compassionate, and to always make well thought out, well-informed, deliberate decisions. And I think that those are some good skills I would bring to the planning board. I've also been in many situations with work where we're coming up with creative solutions. And if elected, I look forward to working with the other board members and bringing some new ideas and fresh perspective to help make Abington better.
Thank you. We'll now start with the questions, and the first question will start with Ms. Kearney. And remember, you have 2 minutes to answer these also. Have you reviewed the master plan? What are the goals that you would prioritize, and what barriers do you foresee to meeting these goals? That's it.
Okay. Yes, I have reviewed the master plan, and there's a lot of goals that have to, basically the overall goal of the master plan is to guide growth and development within the town in a way that has minimal impact on our natural resources, contributes to the tax base, provides a variety of housing and employment opportunities, and makes the best use of our public space. I know there's a lot of things in there about revitalizing the centers, and I think that's a huge one. But I think the biggest challenge would be to achieve our goals while maintaining a healthy balance between growth and development and preserving our resources.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes?
Well, I've reviewed the master plan update. The master plan, is updated about every 10 years or so, and the most recent update was done in 2019. There are 4 main elements of the master plan update. One is land use, the other is environmental, the other one is economic development, and the other one is open space. Key, as far as land use goes, key element of the master plan is the recommendation of the redevelopment of Abington Center and North Abington Center, which, I think is key. When I was younger, I'm not that old, but I'm still remembering when North Abington Center and Abington Center were more developed. But, particularly because Abington Center is close to the commuter rail station, that ties in with the MBTA housing plan that requires housing units, multifamily housing units to be placed within a half a mile of the center of that development. So I see an opportunity to have North Abington Center redeveloped. Open space and recreation, I've served on the Community Preservation Act Committee for a long time. And one of the things that the Community Preservation Act Committee does is allow funding to acquire open space. I've quoted the town moderator before this, Mr. Reilly, has said that the best way to stop development is to acquire land. So I think within the purview of the CPA, acquiring land, conservation land recommended in the master plan is a way to ensure that we have enough recreation, conservation space, and to but still have development, because you just can't stop development, and we have water issues in the town and stuff like that. But I think development done respectively and in accordance with open space goals is a good thing.
Thank you. We'll now go to question 2, and for that one we'll be starting with Mr. Hughes. What are your thoughts on balancing development of our town with conservation of natural spaces and resources? Do you agree with the recent bylaw change requiring developers to plant 1 tree for every 4 mature trees removed?
Oh gosh, well, you know, I've been on the planning board when that was discussed. And, you know, I can tell you all about calipers of trees and diameters of trees that you have to allow, and invasive and non-invasive species. But yes, you know, requiring the planting of trees is a way. One of the things we run into when we have development in town is screening and trees and things like that. And it's important, and of course non-invasive species. It's important to have this screening, and the trees provide that. So as far as the conservation goals of the town, I think you can have development while respecting the environment. And I think that we have the laws in place in this town, the zoning laws in place to require, you know, the environmental review of a project before it's built, that it takes care of environmental issues.
Thank you. Ms. Kearney.
Balancing development with the conservation.
Conservation of natural spaces and resources, and then the tree law.
Okay. Well, development, it's inevitable and it's important for the growth of the town, but so is preserving our natural spaces. But I think that if we really take the time to make well thought out decisions and we exhaust the resources that we have available, such as revitalizing the centers, North and Center School, we can still achieve development with having as little impact as possible. And regarding the bylaw change, I think that trees should be replanted as often as possible. I support that one.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question, and we'll start with you, Ms. Kearney. As an MBTA community, Abington is expected to allow a 50-acre zoning district for affordable multi-family housing by December 2024. What are the advantages and challenges of this proposal, and how would you address them? Ms. Kearney.
The MBTA 3A. Well, these are requirements from the state. I'm familiar with the draft guidelines from last year, and I've reviewed the most recent guidelines that came out in August, but they were later revised a few months later. So that, to me, says that there are still some things that need to be worked out. It's my understanding of these guidelines that if ideally the community should be within a certain radius of the MBTA station or commuter rail station, but if that land is unbuildable for one reason or another, the town can designate other areas throughout the town. And since we already have condos, apartments, townhomes, we should look towards those because I believe if those were to be built today and they will be allowed as of right, they can count towards satisfying the state's requirement. And if that's the case, then we could really focus on achieving other goals and again, have as little impact as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes.
I've been in the planning community for a long time. There's something called the Mass Planners Listserv, and we've had a lot of discussion on that. In fact, I'm also on the board of something called Citizen Planner Training Collaborative, and we had a session on that at our most recent conference out in Worcester. I was moderating another session, so I didn't go to that, but I wish I could have gone. But, you know, Abington's been proactive in zoning the area around the commuter rail station, something called transit-oriented development, which allows multifamily and cluster uses near the train station. So Abington's already been proactive in doing that. But of course, we have to meet the guidelines of this new law, which requires a certain number of houses. Actually, it's supposed to be 1,000 housing units are supposed to be zoned, not built, but zoned. I think that's an important thing to point out. I think we could use the area, it has to be within a half a mile of the train station. I think we could use that area, but I also think we could use our land at Union Point, which is near a commuter. We have 75 acres of land at Union Point, and it's near that commuter rail station. And I think that that would be an opportunity to site, oh, maybe 500 or 600 units, because they allow cluster development there, which is, or form-based development, which is really a form of cluster development. And that would address the issue of having to put multifamily units there.
Thank you. We now go to question 4, which is the last question, and for that one we will start with Ms. Kearney. No, we will start with Mr. Hughes. Sorry about that. Open space and recreation are part of the master plan. What priorities, needs do you see in developing recreational areas, and how can the planning board help preserve and protect those areas we already utilize, such as Island Grove?
Well, let's get back to the definition of what a master plan is, or why we have a master plan. A master plan is what are the stated goals of what the planning board does. And in the current master plan update, there's a section on open space and recreation. And it talks about connectivity, trails, connecting the Abington Rail Trail with the Hanover Rail Trail, for example, signage in places like Island Grove and things like that. And as I mentioned before, with the Community Preservation Act, acquiring new conservation recreation land. I've been on the CPA for a long time, and the groups that are very active, CPA allows housing, historical preservation, open space recreation, acquisition. And the groups that are most active in CPA have been the groups that are running the recreation programs, because there is such a need for recreation programs in Abington. I'm not running for Parks Commissioner, I'm just stating a fact. So I think the planning board, if we do our job correctly, when we look at plans that are submitted to the planning board, I think we can have development, but I also think we can respect the environment by perhaps, requiring a certain percentage of subdivisions and whatnot to have open space. That's why I like cluster development, because you have houses put together and allows a lot of open space. So I think, as a planner, I love cluster development. As far as, having large lot subdivisions, it's nice, if you can afford those houses, but it really takes up a lot of land. So, as a planner, I think I really do like cluster development. And I think that's a way of addressing needs in Abington.
Thank you. Ms. Kearney.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Open space and recreation are part of the master plan. What priorities, needs do you see in developing recreational areas, and how can the planning board help preserve and protect those areas we already utilize, such as Island Grove?
Mm-hmm. Well, open space and recreation areas are very, very important. They both come with many benefits. Preserving our open space areas will help with long-term environmental impacts and preserve the community. Recreational spaces encourage people, give people a place if they want to go out and walk or meet with neighbors. So I think if we develop what we have before we impede on the open spaces and recreational areas, and maybe work towards, like on the park, or just cleaning those up to make them more available for the residents to want to go and visit.
Thank you. We'll now go to the closing statements, which are 1 minute each. And for the closing statements, we will start with Ms. Kearney.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Kearney, and again, I'm a lifelong resident of Abington. I am running for the planning board. I would like to help work with the other members and future town planner to help improve Abington, promote consistency with the bylaws, and and I have very transferable skills, and I think it would be a great asset, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes.
When it comes down to it, experience and knowledge are really key factors in, electing somebody to, it's almost like a technocrat job of being on the planning board. I've been a planner 36 years, which is a good chunk of my life, and I've been on the planning board for 25 years. I'm still taking courses through Citizens Planner Training Collaborative because I always believe that you should take courses if you're involved in a technical thing like the planning board. And, Citizens Planner Training Collaborative, sounds like an advert for them. It really is a great thing. Take courses if you're on the ZBA or planning board or whatnot. But I still have a passion for planning. I still have a passion for giving back to this community, which has been great to me. And I would really appreciate your vote on April 29th. Just remember, experience and knowledge really do count. You really want to have a person with both those on the planning board.
Thank you. Round of applause for the candidates. Thank you both for running for office. And now would the candidates for school committee come to the table? We have a contested race. I believe there are 3 candidates for 2 seats. And I don't know how many years is the, are you ready? They're all 3-year terms? Thank you. We will start with, they will speak in alphabetical order, and then opening statements and questions. And so the 3 candidates are Chris Coyle, Nicole Emery, and Melanie Whitney. We'll start with Chris Coyle. Mr. Coyle.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking Abington Aspire and the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidate forum. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the community for all the support these last few years, as well as the continued support in my run for re-election. I'm Chris Coyle, the current chair of the Abington School Committee. I've had the opportunity to get to know many of you over the years as a member of the school committee and as an active volunteer, parent, and resident in our community. I've been a resident of Abington since 2006 and growing up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where my mother was an elementary teacher for over 30 years. I hold a math degree from URI and have worked in the finance industry for close to 20 years. I met my wife Jane at URI and she's an oncology nurse. We've been married for almost 18 years and we have 2 children that currently attend Abington schools in grades 4 and 7. Prior to being elected to the school committee, I first became involved as a parent on the PTO board of the Old Center School. At the early age of 2, my son was diagnosed with autism and he began at the Center School in their program on his 3rd birthday after aging out of early intervention. In addition to volunteering with the schools, I am an active member with the Abington Youth Basketball Rec Program and the Girls Waves Basketball Program. I'm a coach for the girls softball team and was a Little League baseball coach for 7 years. I also started and volunteered my time for the Green Wave Sandlot Baseball. I collaborated with the town Parks and Rec Department in 2021 and wanted to provide kids with a free weekly opportunity to come out and play a fun game of baseball each week during July and early August. We are now about to start our 3rd season of Sandlot. On the school committee, I list my top accomplishment of my time there as helping to bring a free full-day kindergarten to Abington. It was my initial goal when starting, and we were able to accomplish it with the support of the residents combined with town and school administration. I have learned about the budget over the years and how to collaborate with our town finance committee on an amount that works for the entire town and our schools. I have worked hard to increase transparency and communication from the district and encourage parent and community involvement. I have always shared school committee meetings, factual updates, and news as it becomes available via social media. Over the last 6 years, I have made it a point to post every meeting date and agenda, as well as a YouTube link for that meeting if it becomes available.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Nicole Emery. Ms. Emery?
Hi, first thank you to Aspire for hosting this forum, and thank you to all of you who have taken the time to come here. My name is Nicole Emery, and I'm originally from Rockland, graduated from Rockland High. I went to the University of Connecticut and have 2 bachelor's degrees, a BSN in nursing and a BA in psychology. I'm a registered nurse and have spent most of my career working in inpatient oncology, which also included palliative care and end-of-life care. More recently, I began working in home health, which has been a great experience for me. My husband Manny and I moved to Abington a little over 8 years ago, and we immediately fell in love with the schools and community here. We have 4 children, my daughter Adriana, who is 8 and currently in 2nd grade at Beaverbrook, but will be at Woodsdale in the fall. My son Julian, who's 6 and in kindergarten at Beaverbrook. My son Frankie is almost 5 and has another year before hopefully starting school here at Abington. And then my youngest is Lucia, who's 20 months old and usually attached to me. So having 4 young kids and many school years ahead, I have a vested interest in preserving and improving the quality of our schools. My son Frankie is autistic and he's nonverbal, and I've learned so much from him over these last few years. As a special needs mom, I have a strong understanding of the importance in supporting and educating each student as an individual. And this is true for all students, whether neurotypical or neurodivergent. Fun fact about us is we are a bilingual home with Manny's primary language being Spanish. As I said the other night, I'm still a work in progress, but really trying to improve my Spanish skills. You can usually find me at a playground, local park, farm, or sports field. I've been attending school committee meetings ever since my oldest started at Beaverbrook. I regularly participate in the PTO. I volunteered at the school as well as for various events in town. I know our school committee works very hard and accomplished a lot of great things, but I believe the school committee could use a more diversified perspective, and I would like to be that new and different voice. I'm committed to learning where we excel, where we can improve, and where we need to make a change, and my commitment to our kids is ensuring they get the education they need and deserve. My commitments to parents is transparency, and I will be sure your voices are heard. If elected to your school committee, I will welcome the input and listen to the concerns of all. I'm looking forward to Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Melanie Whitney. Ms. Whitney?
Hi everyone. Thank you to Aspire for hosting tonight and the League of Women Voters, as well as Margaret for being our moderator. We are fortunate as a community to have contested races for volunteer town seats, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to share more about why I feel I'm a great candidate for school committee. For those who don't know me, my name is Melanie Whitney. My husband and I made a wonderful decision 15 years ago to move to Abington and start our family here. I'm a graduate of Situate Public Schools and received my bachelor's and master's degrees in accounting from Bentley University. Throughout my career as a CPA, I've worked with clients on managing budgets, and in many cases made difficult budget cut decisions. I spent several years of my career leading the operational HR team through corporate acquisitions, which included layoffs and employment changes. These experiences have helped harness my curiosity and open-mindedness in problem solving. Asking more questions often leads to a solution where more parties are engaged. I understand the need to balance fiscal responsibility with human needs. Our school committee has multiple stakeholders with potentially differing priorities, and to provide the best environment to our students, we want our district to feel engaged and heard. I'm confident my professional experience will help our committee approach challenges with a reasonable and flexible approach. On a more personal front, when my husband and I moved to Abington, we knew very few people and had no knowledge of Green Wave Pride. When my first child was only 2, I started getting more involved in the schools. I joined the ABC committee in support of a new middle high school and met some incredible residents who spent countless volunteer hours learning about options for a new school. As my children entered the schools, I sat on the board of Beaverbrook PTO, was a Girl Scout leader, and tried my hand at coaching softball. I spend my days in front of a computer or in meetings, and I can't say my paid job fulfills my aspirations. Public education is where my passion resides, and I want to use my expertise to give back to our schools. I believe public schools are at the heart of our community. I'm proud of our school committee, and I'm proud of our district. I want to ensure everyone has a voice. I want to find those students who don't have a sense of community. I want to see our community coming together for the betterment of all. I want to see each student with a connection to our town. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the first question, and with that one, we will start with Ms. Emery. What do you understand as the role of the school committee within our public schools? What are your top priorities or areas where you would like to see change?
So technically speaking, our role is writing and maintaining the policies, approving and monitoring the school budget, and evaluating superintendent. I believe a duty of the school committee is to also ensure academic achievement, and make sure we are not only performing as well as our surrounding districts, but always striving to be better. I believe the school committee should ensure we have policies and programs that fit our district needs, and approve various school programs, professional development, curriculum as part of what they do overseeing the budget. So while I know that the school committee doesn't create curriculum content, I believe they have a responsibility through policy that what is being taught is broad, challenging, and grade appropriate. And if elected, I have several things that are pretty important to me, but to name a few priorities, and something I didn't mention the other night, but a big priority of mine is to try to better connect our school committee with parents. I know our current school committee does a great job at making themselves available, and I know actually Chris in particular is very active with Facebook, but I would love to see more parents attend meetings and voice their opinions and concerns, and would love to find ways to increase that communication and involvement. Another school priority for me is school safety and mental health. I know, like myself, a lot of parents are concerned about the safety and security of our schools. I think safety has multiple different facets to it. So there's the physical and
structural safety as well as the mental health aspect of safety. So with the mental health piece, even before COVID, we had a mental health crisis with our youth. So enter COVID and a lot of mistakes made. I think we saw things get worse. We're still recovering from that. So I think we need to, our big thing now is to better identify students that are at risk. How can we provide the best support and assistance to those who need it? Other areas of importance to me, special education, the English language, English learner program, and just making sure that we're providing all the resources that are needed to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Whitney.
So I agree with Nicole. I think the primary responsibility of our school committee is student achievement. We monitor student achievement through budget and through policy. As it relates to the budget, which is one of my priorities, I believe we need to increase transparency and look to creative funding opportunities. The budget being one of my priorities, one of the biggest things for me is balancing our short and long-term needs. We talk a lot about our short-term needs, but I'd like to understand our long-term needs, like a new building. We have a growing population of students in our buildings. We have a bubble currently in the second grade in Woodsdale that's going to be coming up through the grades to Glenowitz, and I'm unsure how we are going to house the students. We have aging buildings at the elementary level, and I'm unsure what our plan is going forward to balance the needs of potentially a new school or changing our school. As it relates to our policies, I want to ensure that we're focusing on our local Abington needs. For students to achieve at their maximum potential, we need to understand what our students need. We need community feedback and we need student feedback as well as educator feedback to make the best policies to support our growth. I'd like to collaborate with neighboring districts to understand the best practices that they've used. And I want to hold our district accountable. I think to Nicole's point with curriculum, we need to ensure that the school committee is monitoring what's going on, where there are gaps, and how we, either as the community or as the school committee, can assist educators in filling those gaps. As I mentioned in my opener, I'm well-versed in budgets, and I think I can take a close look at our budget to see if there are other opportunities to finance things through grants. As a town, we're just really beginning to utilize grants, and I think that's a great opportunity for a small community with a small budget to be able to provide the enrichment opportunities to our students that some of these larger communities can afford. Specifically, some other things that I want to look at that are ancillary to my two primary goals are. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coyle.
Thank you very much. As mentioned before, there are really three defined roles of the school committee. It's setting the budget, creating policies, and hiring and evaluating the superintendent. Beyond those, though, there are other things that we need to do when we're on that board. One of the things that happens behind the scenes people don't see as much is we are part of subcommittees that help define the district. Some of these examples are working on the contract negotiations. It's time consuming, it takes up time behind the scenes, but it also gives you the opportunity to work with the teachers, find out what's important to them. It's not always money. A lot of times it's not money. It's finding out what they need to help make their job easier, what helps them progress as they go on further. We're the representatives of the community. We provide a voice to those that are not up there. It's important for us to ask the questions of the decision makers and important for us to foster that connection with the community. It can always be better. So that is something that would always be looked to do. From a curriculum standpoint and academically, middle school math is a priority of mine that I like to see improvement in. The math department has begun transitioning different things to try to help it work. It is one area where we see our scores lower on the MCAS, and it's something that we're all looking to get better at. Beyond the core education, I want to work to identify how to make grade level transitions better. I think this is an area where we can definitely improve upon, particularly when we look at the transition from grades 4 to 5 and grades 6 to 7. I believe we need to remember that 5th grade is still elementary school and 7th grade is now junior high school. Lastly, with the growing ELL population, we currently have 17.5% of our student population whose first language is not English. I believe we need to ensure support is in place for those that need it the most.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Ms. Whitney. The question, what are your thoughts on improving school safety? Some in the community are proposing hiring a full-time police officer at each school. Do you think this would be a reasonable change? What other school safety improvements do you envision?
So I think this is a great question and a hot topic right now across the nation. School safety, as Nicole mentioned in our opener, is both physical safety, mental safety, and you could argue also technological safety. As it relates to physical safety, which I think has been a focus in the last several weeks, at least on Facebook chatter, SROs at each school would be a wonderful addition. I think we have 2 great SROs right now, but they're not full-time assigned to our schools, so they could get called off to an emergency. Again, we're a small community, so we have to get a little creative in how we provide the best opportunities to our residents. Something that I'd be looking into for SRO funding, because that is a significant cost that we will have for years to come to maintain 3 different SROs. We could potentially look to grant funding. Because this is a hot topic nationwide, there's a lot of money out there right now provided by grants. In addition, we have physical safety to consider. There are different ingress options at the new school than we have at our elementary schools. So I know that there's been discussion between the school department and our police on how to provide the best physical block as we can. I think there are budget considerations here that we can look to grants for. We've also secured a grant for some additional cameras. So beyond physical safety, I want to look to mental and emotional safety of our students as well. I think involving a sense of community and ensuring our students are having the best experience possible in school enhances the opportunity for our students to excel and not, Abington wouldn't be a future tragedy. Sorry, I'm stumbling. I do think our teachers need an opportunity to learn the words to say when they hear of violence. Of the school shootings or school violence programs, 75% of them, someone verbalized the attack before it happened. So we need to ensure that our educators, as well as anyone else in the school, knows what to do in the event they hear something.
Thank you. Mr. Coyle.
Thank you. First, I believe every child should feel safe while they're in school or anywhere for that matter. I think we need to continue to look at best practices that are in place in coordination with the Abington Police Department. As Melanie stated, as most people know, we currently have SROs, 2 SROs within the district. They're not assigned to the middle school and high school as much as some people may think. And they have begun and will continue to put an added focus on more frequently being at the Woodsdale and Beaverbrook throughout the day as well. An SRO at every school is something that I would love to see. It could be tough to do with the budget, though, with the current budget in place, and it'd be working with the town, not just the school budget, but also the town budget, the police department budget. At the same time, our SROs that are currently there, they're not looked at as security guards, and I don't want SROs to become security guards at schools. I want them to be part of the school like they are now. The budgeting and hiring of adjustment counselors and school psychologists is also something that I believe can help provide safety, provide students with a place to go talk about feelings they may have, giving them an outlet to express those concerns in a safe space setting with someone who's professionally trained to listen to them and things that may be concerning them. And I do want to mention that recently the school committee, along with the police department, has partnered and invited parents to, and invited a presentation for the parent-run Lock Up the Gun program at our school committee meetings, where parents presented their what they were trying to do, which is basically simply stated, make sure all your guns are locked up and secure at home.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Emery?
So again, I think school safety includes both physical and structural aspect of safety as well as mental health. When we think of safe schools, it should include the protection of our students from any sort of violence, threats, bullying, and harassment. I think Abington does a great job of keeping our kids safe, but I know a lot of parents always feel like we can be doing more. As far as the physical and structural safety, I know parents would like to see another dedicated SRO, but I know that there are a lot of barriers to that. Financial, not only, and in addition to the police department not having a police officer available, but I wonder if we could look at other options that might be available in place of a dedicated SRO. I think we can continue to assess and reassess our policies and make changes as we learn, continue to provide age-appropriate safety training. We know physical safety is related to higher academic performance, and students who feel safe are more likely to stay in school and achieve academically. The mental health aspect of safety, we know emotions have an impact on learning. Emotional safety is related to academic performance as well. So implementing programs that teach skills such as conflict resolution, anger management, positive communication are all beneficial in ensuring safer school experiences for students. As a school committee, having policies that promote positive and emotionally safe classroom environments are really important. I also think it's paramount that we have a strong connection between staff, students, families, and the school, providing a variety of activities and frequent opportunities to fully engage parents, and then sustaining that parent engagement by addressing any common challenges that exist to getting parents engaged and keeping them engaged. So I think there's kind of a lot to look at when we're evaluating and reevaluating what we need to do to keep our schools safe, but it includes a lot of things, and I do feel that we're doing the best we can right now.
Thank you. Well, next question will be starting with Mr. Coyle. The question is, inclusivity has been a hot button issue this year, not just in Abington, but across the United States. How will you work toward creating a school environment that allows all of our students to feel seen, heard, respected, and represented in our classrooms, schools, after-school activities, and libraries? Mr. Coyle.
Thank you. So as I said in the beginning about school safety, I believe everyone should feel safe and included when in school. I think my time on the committee, I've continued to strive to do this already. I believe it's one of the most important things we as a community have to do is ensure that all of our students and staff feel comfortable and welcomed while they're in our buildings and beyond. Teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that's done at all levels. It's done at my job. I have to take trainings on. I'm sure a lot of everybody's job was watching, listening. They have to do it at their jobs as well. It shouldn't be a hot button topic to teach equality and inclusion. It should be understood. It should be something that everybody practices to do. Embracing diversity and having respect for it will create a successful environment for everyone to learn in. As a parent of a special needs student, like others here too, I believe an inclusive school district is something that affects me personally. I feel we do a good job and there's always room for improvement, and it's something I will continue to focus on throughout the term.
Thank you. Ms. Emery.
So I think the school committee has an obligation, or I know they have an obligation to the school district to meet the needs of all students. The school committee's role is to create policies that will keep all students in an equitable position when it comes to academics, social learning community, and to prepare students for being just good humans in a diverse world. I think a lot of this really starts at the earliest stages, and it's crucial that we continue to implement the theme of kindness and acceptance into their school day, those lower grades. We know that teaching kindness and acceptance goes a long way and would likely solve, I think, a lot of our issues in schools. So implementing those programs that teach our kids to be kind and accepting of everyone. As the kids get older, I think there's an obvious shift away from just teaching kindness, and we should be implementing programs that aim to connect students of different backgrounds and interests. Maybe look at more ways to bridge a connection between the various groups that exist within schools, particularly at the high school or even middle school level, where I think it gets a little tougher for kids, and especially those who may not even belong to a group. Again, from a school committee perspective, it would mean implementing and maintaining policies that promote positive and safe classroom environments. The work of the school committee needs to reside at the governance level to create accountability, continuity, and commitment, as well as clear messaging to our district and community that we're here to serve all students.
Thank you. Ms. Whitney.
So I neglected in the first question about priorities to list my actual two priorities. I just got caught up in the budget. So my second priority is actually community. So this question is very much an area I'm passionate about. I believe that each student should have a connection to their school, whether that's through club or sport or classroom experience. And I think Abington does a great job in pockets, but I think children who don't have a pocket when they're young have a very difficult time coming in. I know coming into this community as an outsider, there's a lot of people who know each other, and it's really difficult as an adult to get myself into the community. I can only imagine what it feels like for a child, especially a child who maybe this is their first year in the country, or maybe they're entering school in the 8th grade. Even if they're from this country, it's difficult to get in. If you haven't historically, for example, played basketball, it's difficult to enter a basketball team. I want to find those students and rethink the way that we look at clubs and sports and activities to find ways to introduce students to one another. I think it's hard as an adult, and it's certainly hard as a student to include someone. You don't know what words to say. It's a little bit awkward to say, like, oh, I'd like to include you. It looks like you're lonely. I think school is a great opportunity for us to teach those kids what words to use, what phrases to do role playing, to ensure that each student walks away from their Abington Public School career with those memories. I think a student who may not have an interest in vocals or drama or sports could still be engaged through classroom experiences. For example, we have Credit for Life program. That's an area where you get a kid like me who is a nerd and loved numbers. That's an area where I got to meet a lot of people. I think if we have an opportunity to blend our community and get some other adults in beyond our educators through local employment agencies or the seniors, I think it's a great opportunity to bring students together who may not have normally sat with one another at the lunch table.
Thank you. This will be the last question, and we'll be starting with Ms. Emery. The question is, across the country, some parent groups are calling for increasingly more access to and input on curriculum, library books, extracurricular activities, and more. How do you balance the rights of parents with the expertise of school professionals? Ms. Emery.
Okay, great question. I think a lot of balancing and determining what decisions to make will fall back on policies we have in place. I do think that parents have a fundamental right to direct the upbringing, care, and education of their children. That would include the right to choose where they want to send their child to school, and if it's public school, being able to make reasonable choices within the school for their kids. And being able to make choices would rely on transparency. Curriculum transparency provides a look at the content being taught to students, and I think it's only helpful if it's meaningful, meaning being transparent not just about the textbooks being used by the district, but extra resources being used in any particular classroom as well. And for it to be meaningful, I also think it should be fairly easy to access and not require a parent to jump through hoops to access it. But in general, I think we balance and manage parental rights with professional expertise by falling back on the policies and following procedures from the start. Not all teachers are the same, not all parents are the same. We're going to have extremes on both ends. So I know it's definitely a struggle to find that balance, but if we have policies that help govern what our expectations are for our kids' education, I think it makes things a lot easier to navigate.
Thank you. Ms. Whitney.
I apologize. Could you read the question again?
Sure.
Thank you.
Across the country, some parent groups are calling for increasingly more access to and input on curriculum, library books, extracurricular activities, and more. How do you balance the rights of parents with the expertise of school professionals?
Okay, thank you. So I think right now Abington has decent transparency depending on your teacher into things like curriculum and book choices. I think the method of transparency is different depending on the educator. And I think to Nicole's point, policies can help that. I think we need to balance an educator's right to use creativity in the delivery of their curriculum. I think the school committee sets the overall curriculum, the goals, holds departments accountable. Right now, departments are coming to the school committee on an annual basis to report the curriculum, the achievements, and areas for opportunity. And I think all of that is available to parents. I know that I had a question with my student on a book that she was reading at the start of the school year. I said, teacher, I wish that I knew what book she was reading. It covered a topic that might be sensitive to my child. Lo and behold, now that teacher emails ahead of time what books they're going to be reading. She just didn't think to do that ahead of time. So I think keeping those open lines of communication is important, and I think that's a parent's responsibility and certainly a parent's right to have that accessibility. But I think we need to be careful to allow, as a school committee, the curriculum to stand, but still give the teacher that creativity to understand what the students in their classroom need so that they could have a different book choice based on what the students need. I think we could do a better job as a district providing an opportunity for the communication. So teachers use different methods. Some teachers are on an app, some teachers are on email. I think if we as a district had one clear way for teachers and parents to communicate, I think that would be helpful. I think we can also do a better job at highlighting things like books that are going to be read, knowing that each student in that room could have experiences at home that may be more sensitive than others. So I think we do a decent job balancing those rights, but we also still, thanks.
Mr. Coyle.
Thank you. So I think parents should always know what's being taught in their child's classroom. Most teachers that I've dealt with are pretty open in communicating back and forth with parents. I think parents should feel encouraged to ask the questions with the teachers, with administrators. Be open to meet with those making the choices. If any parent was having an issue getting answers from a staff member or an administrator, I think we'd all want to know that, because I think most of our staff, most of the people that run this district want that communication to happen. I know the superintendent's open to meet with anybody that ever has any questions about things that are going on. I know there are specific courses, middle school health topics, for one example, where the parents are notified via U.S. mail, actually, of matters that will be taught in the upcoming trimesters that'll be going on. They're able to reach out to the administrators at the middle school about those topics and potentially take their child out of that into a different type of health class if that was the case for them. Another area where the parents are able to use their rights is it's been well documented in the past few years that parents can opt their children out of taking the MCAS test as well. If they don't feel that it's something they want their child to do, that is their right as a parent to be able to do. With all that said, in terms of making the choices, I believe our staff are educated professionals and trained in making the right choices for the curriculum and the tools that they feel are needed to teach it. I feel they should be able to communicate that with parents, but not have to defend what they're doing to the parent. I'm extremely confident in the staff's ability that we've hired to pick out the material needed to teach the subjects that they need to do.
Thank you. We'll now move to closing statements, which will be in reverse alphabetical order. And for those, we will start with Ms. Whitney, and you have 1 minute.
Great. Thank you all for taking your time to learn more about our candidates for the upcoming election. We should be excited for what the future holds for our growing community. I'm proud of the progress our schools have made in the last decade. I'm grateful for the current and prior school committee members whose dedication has improved many aspects of our school. Your voice matters, and I hope you take the opportunity to vote on the 29th. I would be honored to have one of your 2 votes for school committee. If elected, what you see here from me today is what you can expect. I'm passionate, curious, open to all ideas, and interested in developing a stronger community for all. As a homeowner and taxpayer, I will commit to be fiscally responsible and explore alternative funding options. As a mother, I'll commit to advocating for each student in the public schools. Each student deserves to walk away from their career with positive experiences and lifelong relationships. And as an elected official, I will commit to asking questions and listening to our community's feedback. If you have any additional questions, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Embry.
Again, thank you for having me here and allowing me to give some insight about myself. I'm sure many school committee members before started out just like me, a dedicated and committed parent wanting to be involved in making sure our kids receive the education they need and deserve. I'm committed to making hard and important decisions that might mean big changes for our schools. Having 4 very young children, I have a vested interest and a long way to go with the Abington Public Schools. I do believe our current school committee has a lot of really great members who work very hard, but I believe it could use some change by having a more diverse perspective that can truly represent all students in our district. I know we have and will continue to see some potentially big changes in public education. I'm willing to question changes that just don't feel right for our district. I think it's incredibly important that we provide transparency and protect parental involvement in education. I'm committed to making sure all parents and students feel welcome and heard, and I'm ready to make the commitment this town needs for our kids, and I hope to earn your vote for school committee on April 29th.
Thank you. Mr. Coyle.
Thank you. Because of the time limit, I'm starting with this. The most important thank you tonight is to my wife and children for all the love and support they provided me on this wild ride the last 6 years. My own children and all the children of Abington remain the reason why I'm running for re-election. I've taken great pride in being able to work alongside fellow and past committee members with the utmost professionalism and respect. This past year, we've had many meetings and agenda items that were unlike any we've had previously. I have strived to maintain balance and order in these discussions with no political agenda. I've always been willing to listen to the residents of Abington with an open mind. If re-elected, this is something that I will continue to do. I fully understand that difference of opinion is healthy and okay, especially on an elected board. I would like the chance to close it out by saying that I would really like to get the school committee focused back to the core things that drive education for our children. Over the last few years, things have obviously strayed from that, which I understand. I would like to try and get out of the national political climate as much as possible. I'm not a politician and I don't want to be one. I'm just a parent that is involved like all 3 of us up here tonight. I want to continue the work that is being done by the current committee and prior committees as well. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns. I look forward to seeing you on Election Day and humbly ask for your vote on April 29th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now Carissa will close out the program.
So a big thank you to all of the candidates who came out. We really hope that the residents go to the polls next week informed and confident about who everybody is. Abington Aspire really wanted to appear and remain unbiased and nonpartisan in this. So we actually opened up to the community to supply us with questions. So I want to send a big thank you to everybody who sent us questions. And a big thank you to Margaret COPPE for being our moderator. She's from Massachusetts League of Women Voters, in case anybody had missed that at the beginning. We have coffee and desserts for everybody, and for anybody at home who wasn't able to make it tonight, Abington Cam did record this for us. So a big thank you to them.